This will be my last Rwby podcast.
Dun, dun, dun.
We've been hinting at this.
Going into blaze of glory.
I'm sure we'll talk about Rwby in like during other podcasts, during cross show things. Like, I'm not saying I'll never talk about Rwby, and honestly, I'm gonna keep watching because I'm like, I hate myself, right?
We're
so,
trash.
Like,
You just have to know.
Yeah, so I'm not saying that, but like, the new podcast model doesn't mean we won't do Rwby podcasts. It just means we won't do episode discussions, but I won't be hosting them. If Beatrice or anyone else wants to host Rwby podcasts, like, go ahead. I'm not saying we're done with them in general, but it will be healthy for me to stop these podcasts.
It might be
moving
healthy
forward.
for me too, Dylan.
Yeah.
It might be, like, and I respect anyone's decision to follow suit. So it's the end of an era. I've been talking about the show for 4 years. I want to get in my final thoughts on all aspects of Rwby. So I have 3 categories to talk about Rwby here. Parting the Rwby discourse. And the first one is the show itself. I think this is maybe the least important one in terms of like my frustration, because Rwby's a mediocre show. And if it was just that, then that'd be fine. You know, like, I can have fun with the mediocre show. That's cool. But I do want to say, because some people that watch Rwby seem to think this show is really good. This show is like aggressively mediocre, and it always has been. Your favorite show is not good, and it never will be good because, they're not changing. I'm 7 seasons in. I think I can call it. This show is not changing the way it runs. Last season was like a reprieve. If they do a specific type of season with specific types of things, it can be fine. But even last season was not like in our top 10 shows or anything. Like, this show is like aggressively mediocre. If you think it's great, I think you're legitimately wrong. There's better shows out there. It's okay that it's not good, but the reason it's not good is because the people at the top are not going to move it in a better direction. And I think that's clear at this point. Sucks, but we're attached to a show that will never get better. Okay, that's point number 1. So number 2 is Roosterteeth, which is unfortunate that we have to talk about Roosterteeth. But I think Maddie was hitting on some of these points. We talked about it with Crow and Clover. Like, Roosterteeth, they don't care about us. They suck. This is, I mean, like, we love the Rwby crew. They do amazing work on the show. There's so many people that do such good work on the show, and I'm not saying anything about them, but the overall approach of Roosterteeth to the Rwby fandom this season has been clearly very terrible. And we need to really change this, but we should not be attached to this company that does not care about us. Like, the way they've handled the Crow and Clover stuff has been terrible. The May stuff has been terrible. Bumblebee has been terrible. In general, they just like, and even if you don't necessarily care about these specific queer issues, like, they hype up things that, like, they just hype the show with no consideration to what's coming next, which is just very tone deaf and, not easy to understand, considering like they do know what's coming next. So they're just like recklessly hyping things that the fandom is excited about, which is like a very terrible approach. And I really hate how Roosterteeth has handled the show recently, and I really think they need to change. Related to Roosterteeth, by the way, is like Rwby will never get better. It's like, oh, it's a show where it's made by Roosterteeth, this like indie company. It doesn't have a lot of money going into it, but now there is kind of a lot of money going to Rwby, and we've seen that Roosterteeth is capable of making a great show because Genlock was really great. So there's no excuses anymore as to why Rwby's not good. Genlock was great. This company can make good shows. It's not the company, it's the people making the show at the top. Okay. So Roosterteeth, please improve how you talk to fans. The show is mediocre, but here's the last point, and the biggest thing I want to talk about is the fans of the show. Because I want to say that to anyone who's ever left a mean comment to us, to anyone who's left a mean review, who said we're bad, who's insulted that we said bad things about Rwby, a show they liked, I just want to say, you. Like, I've dealt with so much about this show in the comments. It's no exaggeration to say like 75% of our negative comments have came from Rwby over like the past 4 or 5 years. Like, just honestly, just off if you let's say any of this type of thing. You just don't understand that you're talking like where you're taking such great offense to us trashing a show that you like, but you're saying mean things to people. And this difference between like we're insulting a show, stop being so attached to the show. We're just saying our honest opinions about it. And I've had a lot of, I've like had a lot of mental, bad things come from just constantly reading mean comments that you say. So, the biggest reason why I'm not going to do Rwby podcasts anymore is because you all are just constantly terrible. So, you guys. Thank you to the people that have been great, because I've wanted to stop Rwby podcasts for like 2 or 3 years, honestly. And the reason we didn't is because people have been like, no, you're the only ones that talk about the show in a way that I think about the shogoing and like, I still love all those people. I hear you, but not going to happen anymore because you're drowned out, unfortunately, by some of the people that listen to this show. So, goodbye, all of you who've said bad things. Farewell. You don't have to hear me talk about Rwby anymore. So good for you. Don't understand listening to the end of podcasts that you hate what they're saying and then leave mean comments, but I guess that's it. So show's bad. Roosterteeth's been bad. Fans are especially bad. That's kind of what
Nothing's gonna change.
That's kind of what I want to leave us with.
Oh, we've had a good run, haven't we, folks?
We've